November 24th, 1971. A man walks onto a plane with a bomb, demands $200,000, and jumps out mid-flight with a parachute. He's never seen again. No body, no trace. Just rotting cash found 9 years later. This is the only unsolved hijacking in American history, and the truth is way stranger than you think. But what if the legend we know is built on a single fundamental lie?
D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
The hijacker, carrying a briefcase which held explosives.
Last night, he was just another passenger, but today, master criminal.
Everyone knows D.B. Cooper, the guy who pulled off the perfect crime and vanished like a ghost. But here's what nobody tells you. His name wasn't D.B. Cooper. His escape plan was a disaster waiting to happen, and he left behind evidence that completely destroys the legend. The FBI spent 45 years on this case, and what they found is disturbing. So let me show you what really happened the night America's most famous hijacker jumped into the darkness, and why the evidence says he never made it out alive. And it all starts with an object so small, you'd never even notice it. The problem with the D.B. Cooper case isn't that we can't solve it. The problem is the legend got in the way of the facts from day one. And I get why we love this story, I do. There's a part of all of us that roots for the little guy, the one who sticks it to the system. We want D.B. Cooper to be a phantom, a genius who won. But that desire, that's the funhouse mirror that distorted the facts from the very beginning. We turned a guy who terrorized innocent people into a folk hero. We made him a ghost when he was just a man who left behind forensic evidence, witness accounts, and a trail that points to one conclusion. He didn't survive. Most people have no idea what investigators actually found. They don't know about the microscopic particles on his tie that reveal where he worked. They don't know what the condition of that money tells us about his fate. And they definitely don't know about the suspects who match the evidence so perfectly, it's terrifying. So we're going to strip away the myth and look at what really happened. The hijacking itself, the fatal flaws in his plan, and the forensic evidence that proves D.B. Cooper wasn't a genius criminal. He was a desperate man who made a choice that killed him, a choice that left behind a trail of clues, beginning with a simple black tie. It's the day before Thanksgiving, 1971, Portland International Airport. A man in a dark suit buys a one-way ticket to Seattle under the name Dan Cooper. He boards Flight 305, sits in 18C, orders a bourbon and soda. Everything looks normal. 10 minutes in, he hands a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. She thinks it's a phone number. Then he leans forward and says, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The demands are specific: $200,000, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck in Seattle. The FBI's decision is immediate. Give him everything. No negotiations. For 2 hours, the plane circles. Another flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, takes over sitting with him. And this is where it gets strange. The man is calm, polite. He even offers to pay for the bourbon. Mucklow later described him as not a mean man, just desperate. But here's a detail that gets lost. Tina Mucklow was a devout Christian, a former missionary student. And in the middle of this terror, she later said she prayed for him, for the man holding a bomb. Think about that. In the midst of his crime, he inspired compassion, not just fear. At 5:39 p.m., the plane lands. He gets the money and shoots, releases the passengers, but keeps the crew. He tells them they're flying to Mexico City, but his instructions reveal the real plan:
Rear stairs down, slow speed, 10,000 feet. The pilots know immediately. He's going to jump. At 8:13 p.m., the plane's tail dips suddenly. He jumped. The man who called himself Dan Cooper just jumped out of a 727 at 10,000 feet in a rainstorm into darkness over rural Washington. The largest manhunt in FBI history is about to begin. But they weren't just looking for a man, they were chasing a ghost that the media had already created.
Now we get to the part that changes everything. The evidence nobody talks about. February 10th, 1980. A kid named Brian Ingram is camping by the Columbia River. He's digging in the sand and hits 3 bundles of rotting $20 bills. $5,800. The serial numbers match. This is Cooper's money. This discovery is massive. It's like finding a single page from a diary washed up on a beach. The money was found in one spot, still bundled, miles from the jump zone. The FBI's theory was it washed downstream over 9 years, but a scientist named Tom Kay thinks it was buried on a riverbank and unearthed by a dredging operation. If that's true, it means Cooper's money, and possibly Cooper himself, ended up in the Columbia River, not in the mountains, in the river. Why does this matter? Because if his money is in the river, he didn't walk away. But the money isn't the only evidence. Let's talk about the tie. Cooper left behind his clip-on tie. For years, it was just a cheap tie. But in 2009, the FBI re-examined it with electron microscopy. They found over 100,000 microscopic particles on that tie. Among them, pure titanium, aluminum, and cerium. Cerium is a rare element used in high-temperature jet engine components. This combination is very specific. It means Cooper worked in the aerospace industry, maybe Boeing, which has facilities near Seattle. The tie is a direct link to his real life, and it narrows the suspect pool dramatically. So with a trail of microscopic breadcrumbs and a river full of secrets, who does the evidence point to? Here's where the legend falls apart. People say Cooper pulled off the perfect heist. But when you look at the details, this wasn't genius. It was like building a house of cards in a hurricane. Let's start with the parachutes. He had a choice: modern steerable chutes or old non-steerable military ones. He chose the NB6, a military chute designed for daylight jumps over clear drop zones. You can't control it. It takes you wherever the wind wants. Why? Because he had military training and was comfortable with it. But comfort doesn't mean smart. That choice was the first card to fall. Now the conditions. It was 8 p.m. in late November, raining, thick clouds, zero visibility, temperature well below freezing. His outfit? Business suit, thin raincoat, loafers, no gloves, no hat, no survival gear. The second card falls. And the money. 21 pounds of cash in a non-waterproof canvas bag. In the rain, it would be soaked, heavy, and falling apart. Another card tumbles. But here's the worst part. The plane itself was barely flying. Captain Scott was pushing the 727 to its absolute limits. Landing gear down, flaps extended, rear stairs deployed, all creating massive drag. The plane was shaking. Cooper's entire plan depended on 2 pilots he'd just terrorized, keeping a crippled aircraft in the air. That's not a plan, that's a prayer. Cooper's escape required perfect weather he didn't have, a steerable parachute he didn't take, and survival gear he didn't bring. The house of cards was already collapsing before he even jumped.
The odds of survival were almost zero. But the human body is a strange and resilient thing. Is it possible he did survive, just long enough to leave one final, damning piece of evidence?
So, who was he? There are two suspects that match the evidence almost perfectly. Richard McCoy Jr. hijacked a plane just 5 months after Cooper using an almost identical method. He was a former Green Beret with paratrooper training. But the flight attendants didn't identify him, and he had no clear connection to the aerospace industry. Then there's Robert Rackstraw, former Army paratrooper, helicopter pilot, explosives expert, worked in aviation his entire career. He matches the age, the build, the skill set, and the aerospace background. A team of private investigators built a case against him for years, finding decoded letters he allegedly sent. Rackstraw died in 2019, never admitting anything. The FBI never charged him. But here's what we know for sure. The microscopic evidence on the tie says Cooper worked with planes. The money at Tena Bar says he ended up in the Columbia River. The conditions he jumped into say survival was nearly impossible.
The legend says D.B. Cooper was a ghost who committed the perfect crime, but the evidence tells a different story. Cooper's plan was doomed from the start. The house of cards analogy, the microscopic particles on the tie, the money in the river, they all point to the same truth. The forensic evidence says he didn't walk away. The fact that nobody ever spent a single dollar of that ransom outside of what was found at Tena Bar is the final nail in the coffin. Cooper wasn't a genius. He was a desperate man with knowledge of planes who made a choice that killed him. His body is probably still out there, somewhere in the wilderness, or at the bottom of the Columbia River. The rest of the money is with him. And maybe that's the real ending. Not a daring escape, but a quiet, lonely death in the darkness. A truth that's far more human and far more tragic than any legend. The FBI closed the case in 2016, but private investigators keep digging. And maybe one day, someone will find what's left. Not because he got away, but because the answer is still buried out there, waiting.
The next video is going to shock you even more.